Welcome to Telltale Books. I want to talk about the very first story, very first professional sale by Fritz Leiber. Now I have to say that carefully now because I've discovered that for many years I've been calling him Leiber because I'm familiar. I have some slight familiarity with the German language, and the word Lieb is love in German, but that's spelled Lieb. But I just automatically have been calling him Fritz Leiber. No, it's Leiber. It's Leiber. It's Leiber. So you may catch me drifting into my bad pronunciation of his name from time to time. Anyway, I want to start a series, start to finish, everything I can get my hands on by Fritz Leiber. And there are some stories before this story that he wrote, which I will go back to as soon as I can get a hold of them and read them. I don't have them yet. But I wanted to jump right into his first professional sale, which these days is usually called The Jewels in the Forest. The original title, when it was published in Unknown magazine in August of 1939, was Two Sought Adventure, and this is the first published story of the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser series, which is very famous and has had a huge impact on fantasy literature and had a huge impact on the founding of Dungeons and Dragons, that whole idea of adventurers going out and battling monsters and magic and stuff like that in a kind of pseudo medieval setting that has its roots here. I mean, there's also some, earlier works like Conan stories by Robert E. Howard that are similar in the basic plot and structure that Fritz Leiber is using in this story. But this story is the first one to really, really capture that Dungeons and Dragons feel, in my opinion. I do have the old ace paperback of Swords Against Death, which contains that story, but I don't have it with me. It's somewhere buried in my mountains of books. I read it in the free PDF of Unknown online. Unknown magazine, August 1939 issue, is available online as a PDF for free. And that's where I read it. And the whole reason I did this, the whole reason I got interested in pursuing Fritz Leiber, and particularly this story, is because Emily and I have started reading the new Garth Nix collection, Sir Hereward and Mr. Fritz. Mr. Fitz, which I have here. And I've started reading it. This is a collection of stories, of fantasy stories. And he calls them adult stories. These are not the typical YA things, although the first story I've read so far, there was no sex in it, no real gore in it. But I read the first story in this, which is titled Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz Go to War Again. It was the first Mr. Fitz story that Garth Nix wrote around 2006, I think it was, and published it in Jim Bain's Universe on an online magazine. Anyway, after reading that story, I've read Fritz Leiber before. I've read Two Sought Adventure or The Jewels in the Forest before, but it's been a long time. After reading the Garth Nix story, I'm thinking, that felt a lot like a Fafhrd and Grey Mouser story, except that the Grey Mouser is not this magical puppet, hundreds of years old, brought to life through sorcery. Okay, aside from that, the idea of these two going out, having adventures, battling magic and monsters. It's that classic Dungeons and Dragons. I thought Garth Nix must have been influenced by the Fafhrd and Grey Mouser stories, in particular the Jewels in the Forest. Not that Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz Go to War Again is a copy of what Leiber did. It's just kind of the same idea of the two adventurers going out having an adventure. After that, the details are very different, but it just has that same feeling. It has that feeling like Garth Nix was trying to do a Dungeons and Dragons or Fafhrd and Grey Mouser style of story. And I'm probably murdering Fafhrd. I'm doing the best I can with that, but that is a really weird name, and I don't exactly know how it's supposed to be spoken. I don't listen to audiobooks. I just don't have the attention span to follow what's going on. I find myself zoning out of it and doing other things, and then I come back to it and I realize I'm halfway through it already and don't know anything of what happened. So I just don't do audiobooks for that reason. Anyway, in this particular story, and like I say, this was, aside from the fact that, well, first of all, I'm not the fantasy expert, so I don't know if there's any stories a lot like this that were published before 1939, but the only thing I am aware of that is anything like this are the Conan stories. What they do is they are going looking for a treasure that's in a forest. And this treasure is supposed to be kept in a house. Now, the house isn't a standard shack with a roof. It's got domes, multiple domes, and there's a kind of a tower and a main dome, and the jewels are supposed to be up in that tower. So it's kind of a big house. The two adventurers find it, and they find more than they bargained for. They do get in really deep. I don't want to spoil the story, so you got to read it. This is a top tale. This just is, well, it's only a novelette, but within that short form, it gives you a really strong adventure. The characters are very well drawn here. Very good characters. Everything's very strong. The magic that they're up against is extremely imaginative. And the ending of the story almost is like, it gets almost psychedelic. But it's cool. It's great. So it holds up very well today. And like I say, it has been a huge influence on fantasy literature. This is one of those that, if you love fantasy, you need to have read Leiber's Fafhrd and Grey Mouser series. There's in the paperbacks, the old Ace paperbacks that I have, there were 6 volumes. There are various hardcover editions. The most recent one is the Centipede Press edition, which currently sells on the used market because they're sold out from Centipede. They're currently going for like $250 to $300 per book, and that's reprinting in hardcover all the original 6 Ace paperbacks. So there's 6 of them. So if you want those, get out your wallet, mortgage your house, really scrape together that money, because it's going to set you back big time. But they are beautiful books. And even if you hunt down the free PDF of the August 1939 Unknown like I did and read it, it's definitely worth it. You should, and you should read it if you like fantasy adventure. If you're into Dungeons and Dragons, this story is a must-read on your list. It's where a lot of today's fantasy started. What more can I say but that? It's just a really solid, great adventure story. Extremely well written, very well characterized. Leiber was an amazing writer. And yes, I am going to go through everything I can get my hands on by Fritz Leiber. And so this is kind of the start. Because of those earlier stories, this qualifies actually as number 7 on his list. And so then this kind of prepares me for going further with Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz. We should be reporting on Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz in about a month after this video airs on YouTube. We should be premiering our Sir Hereward and Mr. Fitz review video. We're going to review the whole book, not just story by story. We're going to do the whole book at once and talk about it. And you're going to see from that, comparing that to The Jewels in the Forest, I think you're going to see how Garth Nix really is one of the best fantasy writers today, and deserves to have a bigger. I mean, he's got a big reputation. He's selling a lot of books. He's making money. But there are other people that get talked about a whole lot more than Garth Nix does. He deserves to be talked about. He's contemporary. He's publishing now. This just came out this year, 2023. The oldest story it's a collection. The oldest story in this collection was published in 2006. So this is contemporary stuff. And Garth Nix is definitely one of the best fantasy writers in the genre today. I feel, comparing Left-Handed Booksellers of London with Secret Project Number 2 by Brandon Sanderson, both are young adult, both have to do with a medieval England, an alternate England, and magic. And I feel Garth Nix blows Brandon Sanderson out of the water in that comparison. So this guy needs to be talked about more. He needs to be bigger than he is. And if I can do anything to help that happen, I'm going to. I really believe in his work. And I know Emily's right alongside me with that. But Fritz Leiber was there first. So leave comments. Have you read Two-Sod Adventure or The Jewels in the Forest? Have you read any other Fritz Leiber? What do you think? Leave your comments on this video. I like to read them. I'd like to hear about them. I'd like to hear your thoughts about this. And I'm going to be doing more Fritz Leiber and many other authors. I hope you'll come back and join me for those. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and I will see you again.